Welcome back. Episode, does anybody know?
110?
110
On it, son.
of the Grouch and the Brainstorm. I'm Mike, and I am joined today by Jill
Hey, guys.
and Matt.
Hello.
And together, this is who we are.
Yeah, hello.
We are the Grouch and the Brainstorm, guys. So, pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff. And we are recording on Good Friday.
Yes.
Isn't today Good Friday?
Yes, it is.
I mean, it might not be good for everybody, but it's technically what surprised me the most was the mail ran today.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
mail. I got mail at the house, and that really surprised me that I got mail. And of course, this is the time of year where you're going to have bad storms and all the things that come through. And it's supposed to be a rainy weekend, if I'm not mistaken. It is over in my neck of the woods. So
Sunday. We're getting a storm here.
tomorrow we have a 90% chance and a 65% chance, something like that, 85, something like that the day after. So we're going to have a rainy weekend over in the DFW Metroplex. And I never understood what Metroplex meant. You know, when I was here, we had the Arklatex.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in West Monroe, we had the Arklamiss.
Yes.
And I don't know what they called it in New Orleans. Something. And then, of course, in Dallas.
The river parishes, maybe, or something.
I don't know.
Crescent
I-
City.
Well, yes, they
but
did
they
call
lump,
it
They
Crescent
lump that
City.
group.
They lump what group?
Like the parishes in New Orleans.
Well, and you got to count in like Biloxi, Bay St. Louis, Picayune.
Like those
Mississippi.
little towns in Mississippi.
Yeah, they all kind of consider themselves part of the, not necessarily greater New Orleans, but in a
The
way.
Gulf Coast
Yeah, the
area.
Gulf Coast area. But
Yeah.
I don't remember what they called it. Maybe they called it the Gulf Coast. You ever notice you have a East Coast and a West Coast, but you don't have a South Coast, like
South Side.
South Coast. Me and Matt are going to open up Death Row South Coast.
I was about to say, we have the Dirty South.
Yeah, I mean, we got pretty good rap music out of Baton Rouge and New Orleans, though. So, I mean,
Yeah,
Master
yeah.
P.
Lil
and
Wayne
Lil Wayne.
Came from New
Boosie.
Orleans. I think Lil Wayne is probably the most famous rapper to come out of the New Orleans. And I may be mistaken. I sure don't want to end up in
Probably fame-wise, yeah, notoriety.
a battle. But I think Lil Wayne might be the most famous to come out of that neck of the woods.
So we were in New Orleans the other day.
Yes.
He has a fried chicken place. I took a picture. It has him with the dreads. It's a cool in all the restaurants. But when I tell y'all, every block in the quarter has a Little Wayne's fried chicken.
For
you
real?
can throw a rock from one and hit another one. I kept going, dang, we're going by this one too. We're going by this one too. And I bet we saw, I don't know,
Gosh,
5 or 6 of them in a little area.
Okay.
So they're everywhere down there. But they are cool looking restaurants though.
Well, I'm curious how good it is.
I don't know. We didn't eat, but
Road trip for fried chicken.
for
where
fried
where
chicken.
at it was you? Did
In
you
the
go
quarter.
in the city?
Yeah, it was French Quarter.
So you actually went down to the city? Okay.
Oh yeah, walk down Bourbon.
Well, a lot of those folks that had restaurants down there, as they got older, they kind of didn't want to do the hustle and bustle of New Orleans, and then you crime or whatever, traffic, whatever it is. And so they moved across the lake to the North Shore and opened up restaurants. So you really have good restaurants on the North Shore.
Oh yeah,
Of course, you're not in New Orleans, but you are in greater New Orleans. You're in, Mandeville, Madisonville, Covington, Lacombe.
Slidell.
I didn't even know Lacombe existed until I, lived down there. Slidell. I think Slidell would probably count more of New Orleans than anywhere else, because it's right there. You cross, I don't know, 30 seconds worth of bridge, and you're in greater New Orleans. So, what y'all been up to, Matt? What have you been up to, dude?
Cutting grass. That's it, man.
Cutting
Hauling
grass and
ass,
kicking ass.
Cutting grass,
Good
man.
for you, man.
That's been it.
Any Sasquatch sightings or anything lately?
No, nothing. I'm trying to think anything wild that's happened this week. We
Besides
had
that thing you were telling me about earlier.
well, I don't want. There's some things we can't talk about over here. So
That's why I just said that.
yeah, I
thing.
know. You put me. Miss Faye's teeing me up again. Miss
Well,
Faye.
oh boy, Miss Faye is upset about the snakes.
No, I think she's all right now. So
She's upset about the snakes and the Roberts brothers and
look, I don't want to get in trouble with Miss Faye. I'll get in trouble with a lot, but I don't want to get in trouble with her.
she pulled me to the side the other day, Matt, and I thought she was gonna say, you need to talk to Matt about talking
His
about
behavior.
Yeah. But she said, y'all don't need to be talking about them snakes like that because there are good snakes.
No, there isn't.
Well, I mean, she may have been talking about eating. I didn't know. There might be some good eating snakes. I don't know. It's not.
They eat them in Texas.
Have y'all seen that video? It's a guy trying to explain to somebody a chicken, and he's like, well, I can't really. It's like it's a football, and it
Of meat.
of meat. and here's another deal. It every day it shits out a whole completely different food. And they're like, what do you do? Just scoop it up? No, it comes in a package.
Yeah, it's packaged.
Yeah, that was a pretty. And then there's another skit on there where a guy's talking about the George Foreman grill. Have you seen that one? Where he's like, George Foreman didn't have any help when he designed this grill, right? He just said, put it at an angle, and they were like, well, what about a temperature gauge so you can cook? No, 550 degrees and make it hot outside as well.
Yeah.
and make it just big enough to where it won't fit in a sink.
Yeah.
And, but make sure it's at an angle.
Yeah. That's what you want on a grill,
Yeah, the drippage.
What about a latch so nobody? No, don't worry about that. Just put it at an angle.
Angle, baby.
It's a hilarious little skit, man, of some guy talking
I'll tell you
about
what,
George Foreman.
I watched an old deal about Muhammad Ali fighting George Foreman, and we all knew him. I did growing up as the guy to George Foreman Grill, and he did all the commercials and this friendly dude, whatever. But in his day as a boxer, boxers and fighters, they're right-handed or left-handed, so their knockout punch would be you got to guard against their right hand or their left hand. And they said Foreman was one of the only guys he could knock you out with either hand, just smooth knock you out, like he was that strong of a beast. But yeah, pretty impressive guy. If you watch those old fights, man, he was a monster in his day. So,
Well, Jill, what you been up to?
Work. I work. I really haven't really been up too much. Just working through some anxiety that's kind of been popping up lately. Don't know where it came from, but doing, what I can to kind of ease that. But nothing extraordinary. Just trying to relax as much as I can, and that's about it. So just pretty lame.
Well, that's always a good.
Yeah, I haven't been on the ball this last week. I didn't.
No balls, nowhere,
None.
none. Okay.
I think too, though, in sobriety, I think a lot of people, like we talk about this every week. What you been up to? What you been up to?
Yeah.
It's a lot of just grinding, man.
It is.
It's not always like it's these miraculous things happening all the time. It's a lot of long stretches of just life.
Yeah, I haven't been sleeping the best lately, so it's just been like work, come home, eat, go to bed.
When I'm during the week and I'm grinding and coming in late, that's all I'm doing. I don't too much get out of that routine. I deal what I got to deal with at home, but yeah, I'm hitting the bed and getting ready to do it again. So
yeah, this week's kind of a bust, but I did get a new mattress, so I'm excited about that.
Did you? What
Yes.
size?
A king.
Really?
Yes. And
California or Nebraska?
Just a king.
So Nebraska.
What?
California, I think, is a bigger king.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think it's like wider or something.
I know when it's weird because I see my bed, but when I went to the mattress place, they were like, I was like laying on this king and it did not look as big as mine. Anyway, so.
There's some, I don't really know how it works. I'm probably not going to get any help. None of our callers are going to say anything about this, but there is a California king, and it may be shorter but wider.
I think so.
It just might be maybe a tad bigger. I don't really.
Yeah, I think so.
I have a queen size bed.
Yeah.
Queen size bed, and that's why I've had it for, I don't know, 12 years at least.
Yeah, I love a king bed. But I'm excited because I've been having some, back issues. God, I feel like I just have so many issues.
Well, the
One day it's
older
like-
we get, one day at a time, dude.
I think they're all, related to, menopause, to be honest with you.
Yeah, be honest with me. Yeah, listeners like that. Remember that song, Men All Pause? Men All Pause.
That's what we do when we hear the
You
word
don't remember
menopause.
that?
What?
don't-
Menopause?
Men all pause that walk into. You don't know? Don't even ring a bell.
No.
Let's see if I can find it.
Is it
here.
80s?
I think so. Yeah.
How would I not know that?
Oh man, I don't know. Maybe
Sing. I need you to sing the whole song for me.
the whole entire song.
Yeah, you just were kind of like, man.
Oh, I don't know if I can do that. The Men All Pause song of the group just happened to be named Climax. And the name of the song, and yeah, right there.
It's not the Climax Blues Band.
No,
but it's just Climax.
It's Climax.
Is it Climax with a K?
Yeah. Climax, okay. Kind of like what's that? Yeah, like Kryptonite K. Kinda.
Yeah.
And the shitty internet connection. No. Let me see. I'm trying to. Let's see. I'm gonna put my. Y'all don't remember that?
Yeah.
No,
can't
I
believe
don't.
missed
And that
out.
is like some serious synthesizer going on.
Can't believe I missed out on this gem. Songbird of our generation. There.
Here it is. Can't believe y'all don't remember that.
No.
I think I was 2 when that came out.
1984.
I was about to say that sounded like
6.
way early
I
80s.
was
Yeah,
5
the,
or
The
6.
following year is when the Chicago Bears went all the way with one loss, and the New York Mets beat the Boston Red Sox in
God
the
bless
World
Mike.
Series, and
You were killing it in 1984.
that was 1985.
Oh, okay.
I said the next year.
okay.
1984 was the year. I'll tell the story real quick, and then I got one more story before we get into the topic. But 1984, at the stroke of midnight, Van Halen released an album called 1984. And the video for Jump, if you've ever heard the Van Halen song Jump. Now, this was pre-Sammy days, Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, David Lee
and,
Roth.
And if you don't know, I'm a Hagar fan. Right? I'm a Van Hagar fan to the bone. Nothing against Diamond Dave. I like their music. I like what they did. But I like what Sammy brought. Anyway. But at the stroke of midnight, 1984, MTV released the video for Jump.
I remember the video.
And it was about 11:53, right? And I was, 11 years old. And I had a bubble jacket. And, kind of the sleeves unzipped to make a vest, And I think they made a comeback a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So, anyway, of course, hopefully they're better this go around. So I'll explain that. So I go into the backyard and I wrap my bubble jacket around a Roman candle, and
This is about to go
I
downhill.
light it, because us kids, we would, we threw firecrackers and threw bottle rockets, and I wrapped my bubble jacket around this Roman candle, and the first one went off fine. It only went about 3 feet, but the second one was supposed to go off blew up in my hand. And it caught my bubble jacket on fire. And I'm doing like this. I'm waving my arm. And as I wave my arm, the fire gets worse, right? And my mom's like, stop, drop, and roll. Stop, drop, and roll.
Which was so big at that
It was
time.
big in the 80s.
Well, so I stopped, drop, and roll. But the problem is everywhere I rolled, the grass caught on fire. Because it was like dry as hell in Keithville, Louisiana. So you had this little ball of fire running all over the place,
Mike.
I mean, it's probably a lot bigger in my mind because I was such a little kid.
You were like Ricky Bobby when he set himself on fire and Talladega Nights.
Yeah, something like. So anyway, I like it came out and I ran in the house just in time to watch Van Halen release the 1984.
Third-degree burns all over your entire body.
The Jump video, and at that time it had a little baby on the cover smoking a cigarette. That shit would never fly nowadays.
Are you
right?
sure?
There's a baby angel smoking a cigarette on the cover of the Jump 1984 album. Yes.
I think it would.
What, fly?
Yeah.
You think it'd fly?
I don't know. Do we even have album covers?
Some of the stuff Benjamin sends me on music wise, that's tame. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, and it may fly. I may be completely wrong. I just know that you can't even buy candy cigarettes anymore.
No, it's
Oh,
true.
how rude.
Yeah, you can't. I think you got to get them underground bootlegs. Like you probably buy
Dark web.
cocaine easier than you can buy candy
Probably.
cigarettes.
Probably.
But
That was such a big part of the
not
growing
that
up.
not that I've tried. It's just in the business that I'm in. We sell every kind of candy you can imagine, and candy cigarettes I have not seen in probably 25 years.
Yeah.
So, but my buddy Larry, Y'all know Larry.
Yeah.
Larry W. over at the club he about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago, he brought me a book, and he asked me to read it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a Stephen King book. So I mean, you don't just go home and read a Stephen King book. And I mean, you might if you're retired or
Right.
But my normal night consists of getting home at 10 and living my entire life between 10 and midnight, sleeping between 12 and 5, and then going to work and coming back. That's or going to the hospital when I do. I don't do it a lot. But I always have something to do till around 10 at night, and then if I do get a little extra time, I'm piddling with my motorcycle or out in the garage with one of my motorcycles. And but I never did start it because it's a Stephen King book. And he was like, man, you got to read it. You got to read it. So long story short, the other night I had some time and I cracked it open. And now I understand why Larry wanted me to read it. This book, it's called Fairy Tale. And I'm probably maybe 8% into the book, okay? I'm not that far, but it is just engrossed in AA in the first.
Really?
Probably the first 40, 50, 100, maybe even 100 pages. It is just engrossed in AA.
Is it accurate?
Well, I can tell you that the author has to have some very firsthand knowledge of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for it to be as accurate as it is. And,
Okay, good.
And if he's not, he had to spend a lot of time researching or had a ghostwriter with him who is very familiar with the program of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Okay, good.
Because I can tell you it is very accurate. The slogans, he's from Maine,
Yeah.
right? And the slogans are just spot on, like the spiritual part. The kid's father is a drinker in the beginning of the book, and he gets sobriety. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of times the kid references back to his father about some things in the program and one day at a time, and it works I'm just like some of the things I thought may have just been sold to this region, right? It just very engrossed in Alcoholics Anonymous.
Cool.
So it had my attention. Obviously, I'm going to end up reading the entire book because it's caught my attention. Ultimately, this kid makes a deal with God that if his dad gets sober, he'll pay back. Right? And these opportunities just keep popping up for him to pay back. And that's where I'm at. His first opportunity to pay back. And he can't tell his father, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, was because I made a deal with God for your sobriety.
Damn.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good, premise. How big is it?
Well, that's kind of a personal question, Jill. But
Oh, my God.
it's...
How many pages, Mike Walston?
About 850.
Okay.
And Stephen King don't write a short book.
No, he has big.
He doesn't write them
books.
easy to read either.
He likes big books and he cannot lie. So
they're not. None of his are ever easy to read either. I mean, you have to really pay attention.
But it's only about an inch thick. Go figure. No, it's about an inch and a half, and it's probably about 700, 800 pages. In the iPad, it's 540 pages.
Okay.
And that's in an iPad.
Mm-hmm.
And iPads, usually you can adjust the size of the font, and as you adjust the size, the amount of pages.
More pages.
So, obviously I read with my glasses off. So my standard read is usually about 550 pages.
Okay.
So it's about 700 maybe 550, 700 too. So,
okay.
But it's so far, it just catches your attention because of the firsthand knowledge of AA.
Mm-hmm.
It's very impressive.
I don't want to, and I'm not 100% on this, but I have seen some things on Stephen King about drugs and alcohol, and then him getting sober, and never anything where he came out with Alcoholics Anonymous or anything like that. But I've heard him talking on having issues with that in the past, and some of the books he wrote, and drinking and acting,
absolutely.
So I don't know. It may be very much be first.
And a lot more famous people are coming out as far as their recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And and of course, I think the most famous one, obviously to us in our generation, is going to be Marshall Mathers. He's not closed lip about his recovery.
Yeah.
He's loud about his recovery. He never says the words AA.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you were going to say Larry W., because that's who I think is probably the most famous person that's ever
Our Larry W.
yeah.
Well, he's
He's probably number 2.
he's
you know?
definitely number 2.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. If not, he's a number 2 head.
yeah.
But he is. I'm gonna look it up right quick and see. I'm just gonna Google Stephen King. I don't even know how you spell it. King King sobriety. And let's see, Stephen King sober since. Stephen King has been sober for over 30 years, since the late
was thinking so.
1980s. So that means he
Okay.
was still drinking when I had my debacle on January the 1st, 1984. When his family staged an intervention to address his drug and alcohol abuse. This intervention took place after he was struggling with addiction for many years.
Okay.
Wow. He began his recovery journey following the intervention. So it's just several.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes though you see stuff on social media and they post some famous person and they go, "I quit drinking," and it's a 12-second clip, and they yeah, it's great if somebody has a, you know, hey, I don't want to drink, or I'm drinking too much and I'm going to stop for a little while. I think some of that stuff is more put up there for views than it is. Even the person saying it is not saying like,
Well,
oh,
and
that
that
was this
may
big.
not even been the context of the sentence. You
right.
know, they just take.
And you know, Matt, we see a lot of stuff on Instagram as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the algorithm is automatically going to pull stuff that is going to be at our interest, that we, you know, our friends, what we search for, that kind of stuff is going to come up on your feed.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just, I tell you what, I'm rewiring some tail lights on my motorcycle, right? I bought one of those trunk things for when I travel. It's called a tour pack, but it's a trunk for a motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought one for whenever I'm traveling. And I wanted to see what gauge wire Harley Davidson uses, so I can go buy some of this wire. And I'm going to wire it myself, you know, do the soldering and all that good stuff. Just to have something to do, really.
Yeah.
And so I got on there and I Googled what size wire does Harley Davidson use for their tail lights. And I got an answer, but the problem is now every time I go on Instagram, part of my feed is
Harley Davidson wire.
every kind of wire you can possibly imagine. You know?
It'll go away quickly. Just Google something else.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know. It's been, well, hopefully it does go away pretty quick. But the other day I was also looking through some of these folks on Instagram, and like, see this right here: System of a Down lead singer makes the leap into coffee. I don't know if he's just decided to give up liquor and start drinking coffee.
That's great.
or or he never had coffee. I don't know.
And I think that's great that people can see that, and you know, you can kind of, if you really listen to a few minutes of someone speaking, you can say, oh, okay, they really, you know, there was treatment center, there was these things involved, there was interventions, there was whatever. But I do think that folks will take some of this stuff celebrities say and post it as if this person, and I don't think that's fair. You know, I think because you're putting this famous person out there like they're the end all be all of
and if
sobriety,
something happens,
and it may just be,
it makes
hey,
it look like that sobriety doesn't work, and it may just have been something they were going through that we'll never know about, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
right.
I mean, at the end of the day, these people are human, or they wouldn't fall prey to addiction,
Right.
and that's just, you know, the ultimate truth.
If you want to hear a good one, talk about pull up Ron White and him talking about going to rehab one time and being down.
I saw it the
and
other
Robin
day.
Williams coming to take him to lunch, and Robin Williams took him to lunch and made him laugh and all that in the middle of being in rehab. And he was like, I was just so impressed with how kind Robin was for no reason, you know, and he just showed up to help me out, and he barely knew me, and just kind of picked him up, you know. And of course, Ron White said it was he had a brief bout with sobriety,
Yeah.
which was pretty funny anyway.
Well,
but he said I overcame it. You
And
know?
if
It's horrible.
I can't quote 100% on Robin Williams and his recovery or sobriety, and if he had any, like, I don't know. I just know that I do think he had some sobriety, and unfortunately, he fell victim to some of the things that happen after recovery, and that could be depression.
Yeah.
And, you know, the alcohol may have had it go away for a while, and then, unfortunately, one of the funniest people and one of the best people
Oh yeah.
on the face of the planet, you know, took his own life. And that's just, you know, that's why things like that happen. You know, we know people we love and care about and see every day that just make that ultimate decision just to not be with us anymore.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there is a tricky bit to this recovery because we get to see a lot of things that other people don't get to see.
You're right.
And so that is not a good thing.
We had a relative OD this week, and I don't want to share too much of it privately wise. It just happened, but I mean, this was literally a few days ago, and they found her in the house. She'd been in there 3 days, and you know, just saw her recently, and you could tell she was battling some stuff, and it wasn't. It's weird how we see it wasn't the drug thing she was battling. You could see that it was just something out there, whatever that is, that she was really dealing with, you know. And for the hour or so I was there that time, I felt like, how do you help this person, you know? And that's the part, I think, why we all go to meetings and we continue to hang out with people like us, and we do all those things, because, yeah, we can get the drugs and alcohol gone, but then these other things show up. And we have to work through that, and that's just part of sobriety, you know. It's part of it.
According to the Big Book,
Life still happens.
we're fixing to get into our topic for the day. According to the Big Book, when I say we, the people that went before us had been rocketed into the fourth dimension.
Huh?
I thought that
What's
meant
that?
what happened when that bottle rocket went off in your arm.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I've heard of the third dimension. I've heard of the fifth dimension. There's actually a group, I think, somewhere. Yeah, I'll Google them in a second. But look, the fifth dimension. You never heard of the fifth dimension?
I don't
Smokey
think so.
Robinson and the fifth dimension or
No,
something?
I know Smokey Robinson.
And the miracle. Okay, I might have to Google it. So in the chapter, there is a solution.
Okay.
There is a solution, right? Mm-hmm. Almost none of us liked the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process requires for its successful consummation. But we saw that it really worked in others. Now, first off, the successful consummation means for it to work, right? We had to do the confession of our shortcomings, the leveling of our pride, and all that stuff. But we saw that it really worked in others, and we had to believe in the hopelessness and futility of life as we had been living it. So not only did we see it in other people, but we had to realize and believe that the life we've been living is hopeless and futile. Mm-hmm. Okay. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, not in the process of solving, the problem had been solved. There was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. We have found much of heaven, and we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. Okay? And I'll read more in a minute.
Yeah.
But that fourth dimension of existence. Now, let's go to Google.
Okay.
And let's see what Google AI answer guy says. You know, I have a hard time believing that back before AI, there was some guy sitting in an office, and every time I typed a question, he would type an answer.
You know, I do want to throw in there, Mike. You're throwing out these obscure bad bands like whatever that was with the K. But I've got to vote for Sexual Chocolate off Coming to America.
Well,
that's
you
one
know,
of the greatest.
there
bands of all
are
time.
some of the one-hit wonders out there.
What's
that
that? Let Your Soul Glow?
No, they did. Did you ever see Coming to America?
Yeah, that's one of the songs I was just talking about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the whole time I was reading that, I was panned on Matt the whole time. I didn't know
Well.
this. Yeah, they got a glimpse of Matt staring off into space. In Alcoholics Anonymous, AA as we call it, rocketed into the fourth dimension refers to a profound spiritual experience or awakening that can lead to a change in perspective and behavior.
Okay, so it sounds like the psychic change.
It's not a literal jump to a different dimension, but rather a metaphorical description of a shift in consciousness and connection to a higher power, resulting in positive changes to the individual's life. Now, the reason I picked this topic, and I'll do this real quick because I want everybody to get to talk, obviously, is we had this topic. We were doing a Big Book study last Sunday, right? And when I read that, it made me think of this whole nother dimension of life that opened up to me after recovery, okay? And so after recovery, I got to face my demons during the steps, not after recovery, but in the start of the recovery process. I got to face my demons. And in facing these demons, I was thinking 38 years old, I'm gone as far as I've ever gone. You know, I had achieved a lot of really good things. And, you know, I'd climbed up a ladder and down a ladder and back up a ladder and back down, you know. And I was thinking, this is it. I'm 38. And for some reason, a lot of these fears that I had went away after I did the steps. And it was almost like because I had this new best friend, God, you know, I could just say, all right, I don't have the guts to do this. I'm just going to go do it. And I just need you there taking care of everything along the way, along this journey, right? And I like that's from my amends to work decisions to travel decisions. But this whole nother dimension of my life opened up because the fear went away. And once I saw that failing at something really wasn't too crappy, right?
Yeah.
Failing is okay. Once I seen that, I was not scared to go do things. And one of the biggest things that we do is we don't do something out of fear, and we never know how it would have turned out.
Right.
So it opened up a whole nother dimension. Now that's how I seen it. Okay. But then my boy, and this is one thing I really like about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is you can disagree with somebody.
Yeah.
It's okay. You're adults, and if you don't agree with them, they shouldn't get the red ass, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Travis, somebody else shared, someone new, and then Travis shared. And Travis, you know, the first thing Travis said is, well, I disagree with Mike, or I disagree with what's been said. I don't think he said my name. If he had, it'd been okay. I disagree with Mike. I think what the fourth dimension is when you come to realize that you have the ability to worry more about others than you do your own self, because this is an altruistic program. If you don't know what altruistic means, it just means doing stuff for others, basically. Okay, there's a definition. Not going to Google it right now, but that he basically went that route, you know. And you know, I'm not like some of these folks where, well, I disagree with Travis because, no, I didn't do all that.
It's all a matter of perception.
Right. And my sobriety is completely different than Travis's. But I did respect what he had to say. And it made me think, this fourth dimension thing, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got a different way of viewing it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm new to AA, and I'm sitting there, and I'm reading this with my sponsor, and my sponsor tells me, hey, you're going to be rocketed into the fourth dimension. And you're thinking rocketed means pretty quick, right? You're not paddling into the fourth dimension or rowing, you know.
Right.
You're rocketed into the fourth dimension. And my view on it, if I take my view and I take Travis's view, right, both of our views, and I combine them, there's a whole nother dimension of life right there in itself. It could be the fifth and sixth. I don't know. It's getting kind of complicated. But there's two dimensions right there that didn't exist, a whole nother dimension of my life. I never got up and prayed every single morning. Not while I was drinking. I did when I was a kid. But I'm going to read a couple more definitions. A more detailed explanation. Spiritual awakening is the phase suggests a deep and transformative spiritual experience often associated with finding a higher power and a new sense and meaning of life. Change in perspective. It implies a shift in how one views themselves, their problems, and their relationship with others in the world. Beneficial changes. The experience is often followed by positive changes in thinking, behavior, and overall well-being, such as increased happiness, peace, and a greater capacity to serve others. Metaphorical meaning. While not a literal journey into a physical dimension, it's a way of describing a significant and positive change in one's life that feels like a leap in awareness and understanding. Okay?
Yep.
And I'll say this, and I've said it a million times, but when I was growing up, you know, my mom, and my mom, I love my mom, but my mom and dad, really, they would tell me all the time that I had I don't give a shit attitude, you know? And y'all ever hear that? Your parents ever tell you have I don't give a shit attitude?
Lazy.
Okay. Well, then you go, you know, 17, 18, really, by the time I was 18, I didn't hear that, right? I kind of didn't hear anything. I was working all the time and have been since I was 15, 16. But, you know, I get jobs and a wife and some kids and some pets and a little bit of financial, more financial well-being, and I start attaining physical things, and I become so important in my head that life becomes extremely serious. And instead of having an I don't give a shit attitude, I have this attitude of I got to control everything, right? And then I go to AA, I work these steps, and about 6 months into it, I'm right back out and I don't give a shit attitude because something else has got this. So I'm like, I won't. My parents didn't tell me I had tapped into something as a kid that was really great, you know.
When applied correctly.
Because, you know, some people that I don't give a crap attitude, I should say. Well, I don't give a crap attitude, but you wake up and you're like, oh, damn, I'm already late for work. I ain't going. You know, you ain't got to say it like Matthew McConaughey, but you know what I'm saying. You know, I ain't going. So it wasn't like that, but it was where a lot of the things that used to be on my mind weren't on my mind anymore.
Yeah.
Whole nother dimension of life. Like, you know, and the more you help others, it seems like you just get paid back in everyday life somehow.
Yeah.
Which is also another part of that book I was talking about. So, but let's hear you guys talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know I have been rocketed into the fourth dimension because I am nothing like I was before. Absolutely. My thought pattern's totally different. I have had the psychic change, and that's fabulous. I mean, it really is. You know, where I didn't have hope ever, I have hope now. You know, where it's just all the old was replaced with new. It was replaced with new thought patterns, you know, new feelings as a result of that, and different actions. And, you know, learning how to, there's so much you learn in recovery just about yourself, and just the little things like tolerance and, you know, learning to let go of control. And there's probably all the millions of lessons that I've learned is because of, you know, I let go. I was able to let go of all the old things that I thought were working for me, but they weren't. And, you know, at first it's huge. And you're seeing all the beautiful, like all these miracles happen, and you're just kind of like astounded. And you're just like, wow. And it took me quite a few years to get to that point because like I procrastinated and stuff. But once I got there, it's like things were just, what it was basically me surrendering and just letting go of everything. And, you know, actually trusting God and trusting God's will for me. And, you know, it changed everything. I have a peace now, but I think it's kind of like having the psychic change or being on the pink cloud. You know, over time, it loses its luster, if that makes any sense. You're not as like just shocked, and it just, now it's just another day.
Yeah.
And, but I'm grateful. I never want to go back to, you know, the way things were. I don't, because it doesn't work for me.
And even Google the Big Book, right after it talks about this rocketed into the fourth dimension, it starts talking about a spiritual experience, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that in a second. But the 10th step promises, and I don't know if y'all familiar with them. To me, they're my favorite promises.
Mm-hmm.
And is being rocketed into the fourth dimension a promise? I don't know. Some people may view it that way because the book is filled with what we have labeled as promises. I don't even know if Bill Wilson labeled all these others except for the 9th step promises. Right?
Okay.
But the 10th step promises are, and this is pretty cut and dry, right? We have ceased fighting anything or anyone.
That's what I was talking about.
Even alcohol. For by this time, sanity will have returned, right?
Mm-hmm.
We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as if from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. if we will see that our new attitude towards liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part, it just comes. That is the miracle of it. Don't leave till the miracle happens.
No, and I wish everybody did stay till the miracle happens.
We are not fighting it.
Yep.
Okay? I don't wake up every day fighting liquor, by the way. I don't wake up every day fighting alcoholism. I
Don't
wake
even
up,
think about
I
it.
have enough things I'm fighting every day.
Right.
Alcohol cannot be one.
It's
The
not
only-
one.
My problem is this. I can wake up fighting 1,000 things every morning, which kind of gives me drive. Or I wake up fighting one, which is alcohol, which gives me no drive, which
No
kind of
thanks.
takes away all those things I'm fighting for, right?
Yeah, and that's one of the big miracles, that I think that we've all had as far as working the steps, not just sitting in meetings.
Yeah. And the steps, this is step 10. We ain't even got to 11 and 12, right?
True.
And so that's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, nor are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is how we react as long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Now,
Okay.
I'm not going to read the next paragraph, but boom, the next paragraph says, hey, if you sit on your ass and don't do anything, you're going to go back to where you were, And we've talked about that in on this podcast before. So, Matt, what do you think about this fourth dimension?
I think it's a few things just listening to that. Like, I agree with what you were talking about with Travis. Number one, that stuck out to me. That's what's really cool about Alcoholics Anonymous. When you get into people have different higher powers, they have different spiritual experiences.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
ain't for me, whatever mine might have been, and my definition of something spiritually, it does not mean that the guy next to me has to have the same daggone one. That's not for me to put that on him and say, oh, well, you didn't, whatever happened to you. Well, then that probably wasn't a real, we don't do that in here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when we hear, I think that's good when you're talking about with Travis, where folks are just talking and going, hey, this was what I think, because there's people in there that are trying to figure that out at that moment.
And I will honestly say, there's the split second where you get the red ass.
Sure, that's our human nature.
But you let go real quick and say, hey, the guy's been sober over a decade longer than I have, and this is his opinion, his view.
Yeah.
So-
yeah.
And that I think is what really bonded me with Alcoholics Anonymous, was the way different things, different views and different experiences all came together to achieve the same thing. And my deal is, man, if that guy sitting over there is doing his thing, he's sober, he's living his life, has a life, he's enjoying it, man, do your thing, dude. I don't, yours and mine spiritually stuff does not have to be the same. That's not what we're there for. I want him to have something, because that's the basis of what we do. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of, the rocketed thing gets me, the word rocketed, because I don't know that I was rocketed into the way I was changed my thoughts and like how I looked at things.
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
Because I think that's where the sponsor came in early on, and you can say rocketed in a year's time. I mean, I went from,
Well, compared to a 30-year
Yeah.
drinking career,
so
Right,
that's
right.
pretty quick.
if you do that in a year, that's pretty fast.
I mean, you're talking about the 10-step promises, and I remember reading the 9th step promises at every meeting. And I was like 10 months along, and I remember going, oh, some of these are coming true. And that was the first time I ever remember that happening. And I was like, wait, that's actually true. That happened, or this
Yeah,
happened. And
yeah.
I'm like, oh, crap. Like, that's why they got that poster on the wall, I just thought it was something they hung up over there, But I think with a sponsor early on, the changes in the behaviors, the changes in, yes, you have to have a higher power. But I think having a sponsor that has a higher power and that has been through that a little bit, the change in the way we think and our attitudes that we approach things, they can give you those little nudges to kind of go, hey, you're finna go off the rails, boom, and kind of like a boat fixing to slam in a dock, and they can just kick their foot out and turn the nose of the boat, and it. That's kind of what sponsorship was for me, and helped me come through that stuff. And the way I approach things and the way I looked at people, learning the control. I don't control everybody else, and that doesn't matter if it's my wife, my kids, my ex-wife, my uncle. It doesn't matter.
Did you get married? You got married?
No, I was married when I came in. You know,
okay.
and
Yeah, you had a wife before that.
yeah, and hopefully be getting married soon. So we had some slowdowns on that, but we're working on it.
Well, I
But
mean, I can marry you guys right now if you want to run by the house.
I-
after we-
I'm trying to talk her into jumping on a plane, going to Vegas, let Elvis marry us in the drive-through, and coming back. I'm not even joking.
Man, I'm telling you, 100 years from now, Elvis gonna be a memory. Y'all gonna have to figure out. Y'all might want to let like Darth Vader or somebody.
I really don't care. I'm like, we don't have to. We can. Let's go. You know?
I'd be like, let's just go to the courthouse.
Yeah.
The Fifth Dimension sang the song Up and Away. No,
Sing it for us,
Man.
Mike.
no, I'm not gonna sing that for you. No,
But
I charge extra for the vocals.
I'll tell you something very recently, like within the last week, that really hit me in the way that I've changed and the way that I think. We had a medical situation happen. It was going to cost some money financially, like that just had to be done, right? And I get the text, and I'm mowing grass, and I'm aggravated. It's hot, and I get not aggravated, but just trying to keep their life, you know, pay your bills, do your things, and you get this bomb, boom. This has to happen, and it needs to happen. There ain't nothing we can do about it. And I said, do it. And what was so cool was I didn't have the money to pay for that at that moment. But I knew by the time it got ready that I could figure that out, and that God had always been there every step of the way. And it worked itself out, you know? And what I've figured out with the rocketing and all that stuff is it's trust for me to go, I'm not in control of this. My only job is to do the best I can and let the chips fall where they may. And man, that's worked out pretty dang good.
That's probably one of the greatest lessons I've learned.
But I got home and I was talking to Lacey, and I said, man, like, she's like, well, what do you think about that? And I said, I'm actually grateful. Like, that's a weird thing to say. But the more I thought about it, I went, I wouldn't even been able to do this like a few years ago, you know, like I would have never thought that way. But I was like, I'm so glad and grateful that my life is in a thing to where this is not a disaster. It's not going to destroy everything. We'll just figure it out and we'll go on.
Well, and it's just stepping back and letting it all happen, and it does, and it works out a lot better than what we used to try to do.
Sure.
And life has curveballs, man. No matter how you look at it, life has curveballs.
Yeah.
I mean, what'd you do?
Oh, I just was about to like blah blah.
No, talk.
No, I mean I don't even remember anymore.
Well,
Shit.
well, damn, Jill.
Oh.
Go for it.
I'm so sorry why I do this all the time. But
Oh,
anyway,
it'll be all right.
what I was, going to say is that I have been. You were saying life still happens, and we still have things that go on. And yeah, I've been rocketed to the fourth dimension. I'm not feeling great right now.
You're not too spiritual right now.
I just am not feeling well physically.
Okay.
And have some anxiety going along with that. So, but just because that happened doesn't mean that takes away the fact I don't want to use drugs. I don't want to drink. I'm still letting God control this, and I'm still using everything that I've learned.
We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater anymore.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, like I can still like be in a funky mood and be exhausted and all these things, but still be rocketed into the fourth dimension. It's not something that I've lost because I've learned so much and I've been using it so much in these, 15 years that it's my new normal.
Well, do you ever have a situation arise where you just kind of step back and go, all right, what does the program tell me to do? Because I'm off the rails here. I'm going a million different places. What does my program tell me to do? Mm-hmm. And I've had a lot lately. Maybe
really,
yeah. And so and stuff goes on. I still have a life, and for the most part, my life consists of just working and things that go on at work. But a lot of times, I will have to stop and go, what is actually going on right now? Right? what is happening right now, you know? And I have a calendar, you know, I have a personal calendar and a work calendar, and I kind of converge them on a desktop at home, and I look at them every day, and like, this is what I've got to worry about right here, whatever's on this calendar, nothing else.
Yep.
And, you know, and it's been a lot like that lately. But I will end up bogging myself down with so much to do. I mean, just
I do
taxes. Let's just take taxes, just in general, right?
Yeah.
I don't just do my taxes. I do other people's taxes.
Do you really?
I do. I do a lot of taxes. And so nobody wants to do it until the last second. A lot of times nobody gets me their paperwork until the last second. And so I'm either going to file an amend on a person, and if I end up doing that, it costs them money.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to try to enter what I have, not an extension. That's going to cost them money. Or I'm going to, but anyway, where I'm going with all that is you get so much going on, and at some point I got to, what am I got to worry about? You know what? I got to take care of mine first, because I'm the one that's going to end up, you know, with a bigger penalty. And so, but even taxes to a certain point, I took an entire day off just to do taxes. And, you know, and then, of course, I ended up having to ride my motorcycle up to Oklahoma because that's what I felt like doing, you know.
All right.
Well, I started going to drive down to the neighborhood market at the end of the road that I live on.
You ended up in Oklahoma.
And I ended up,
And
well,
he said, "Vroom, vroom."
actually, I ended up about a mile from the Oklahoma border. I just followed 35 all the way up. I live right off Highway 35 in Fort Worth, okay, in Burleson, Texas. And there's Highway 35 goes down to Waco and keeps on going, or north it goes all the way into Oklahoma.
Is that interstate or highway? Interstate 35?
It's I-35, yeah.
Okay, Interstate 35.
But, I guess if it goes across state lines, yeah. So, but I just get on it, and I'm like, you know what? It's a beautiful day. There wasn't a cloud in the sky, and I'm going to get on this bike, and I'm going to ride to Oklahoma, right? And so, and kind of clear my mind.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just driving, and I get about a mile from the Oklahoma border, and maybe even 2. And I stop at a gas station, I go in, I grab a Red Bull and a pair of sunglasses. And I chug the Red Bull and I put the sunglasses on. And then I pull out of the gas station, and the line to get into Oklahoma is probably, I had been driving for an hour and 45 minutes, and the line is probably 2 hours to get across the border, 2 miles
Really?
away. Traffic just backed up all the way. I mean, I don't know what we're running from. I mean, I don't know if it was because it was tax day. Everybody wants to go to Oklahoma. I don't know. But the line to get into Oklahoma was just out. I mean, maybe they were putting on the play, Oklahoma, right outside. It was crazy. I mean, just, so I kind of went back to that gas station, and I said, and then here's the thing. This is where I was going with that. I don't know why I got off into that tangent, but I go back to that gas station, and I'm like, I'm going to get another Red Bull. I set out to go to Oklahoma, and I'm going to go to Oklahoma, period. This is ridiculous. If I got to sit in that traffic, I'm going to sit in that traffic. I left my house with a goal, and I'm going to get into Oklahoma. And I go in that gas station, and I get another Red Bull, and I come back out, and I ask myself, why is it so important to you to do that? Like, you know, it's okay to not have drive all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, man. Turn around and go home. Finish all those taxes. You're going to be okay. So I got back on the highway, and I went back home, you know, and I took another way home, so I didn't have to look at the same stuff, even though there's absolutely nothing to see in Denton, Texas, right? But I did. I drove all the way to and turned around and went back, and I never actually made it into Oklahoma.
That's okay.
Yeah, and it's okay. Nobody called and said, how come you didn't show up? You know, nobody from Oklahoma called me. How come you wasn't here? You know?
Yeah.
But a lot of pressure I put on myself.
Oh, yeah.
I set out to do something, and by gosh, I'm going to do it. And still, to what end? You know, it ain't like I'm going to Smokey and the Bandit where I got 24 hours to make it from Atlanta to Texarkana.
With a truckload of Coors beer.
Truckload of beer, you know, and a dog.
I used to have 2 guys that worked on the grass crew with me, and we called them Big Enos and Little Enos.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they look like them too.
They look like the Enuses. They could have found a better name than Enos, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was kind of appropriate looking at
Wasn't
them
there
too,
an
though.
Enos on Dukes of Hazzard?
That was
There was a Roscoe and Enos.
yeah. That was a popular name back
Have,
then.
was it?
Enos?
Evidently.
I've heard it never.
I've never had a friend named Enos.
Me either, but I wish I did.
What you up to? You know he'd have caught hell growing up.
Yeah.
man.
We had a guy named Gru that worked for
Tom
us.
P. Enos.
Don't do it.
I can't help myself.
Don't do it.
But he, I don't know about your friend Tom, but yeah, Enos. Never heard that. You know,
It's the unusual one.
it is.
How does a mama look at a little baby and be like, I'm going to name this kid
Yeah.
Enos?
Or Roscoe.
I could see Roscoe. I mean, that's kind of a cool name, but
Yeah, it's getting a little
Enos
weird.
is, that's tough.
Enos is a big one.
Johnny Cash said a boy named Sue. You know what I mean?
Well,
I can't
yeah.
listen to you.
Enos is a big one.
Yeah.
So, but long story short, I use that program, right? To me, that's another dimension because I could have just put so much pressure on myself, even though crossing that border would have meant nothing. I've been to Oklahoma before. It ain't like it's the first time.
Yeah, yeah,
So, you know, the pressure we put on ourselves.
yeah. That'll definitely get in
I'm
way
so
of
much more chill now than I used to be because of realizing I got to let go of all this control, like that kind of stuff, man. You're working all day and you're
Exactly.
like, I got up today. I'm going to be here at the end of the day. Well, then equipment breaks. You get stuck behind a train. All these things, and you're wore out. And I work by myself, and I'm like, I worked my tail off all day. I got 2/3 done of what I tried. You know what? Let it go. We'll start again tomorrow. If I didn't get there, let somebody know. Roll on. You know?
well, and what I think, like to think is that this fourth dimension is peace and is serenity,
Right.
and I'm not giving up that for much.
That
I'm-
was,
and Jill's right. She's not.
that's what
I'll give her
stuck with
that
me
one.
was Serenity Prayer when you were reading all that.
Well, so I would just thought about this. You know, some people are late for work because their kids are sick, or the daycare was closed, or they had a flat tire,
Yeah.
or they're hungover,
Ooh,
you know,
yeah.
or they didn't make it in from a bar till 2. I have been late for work. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've been late for work consistently for the past 12 years. I don't really show up on time ever, but sometimes I'll go in 4 hours early and leave 12 hours late.
You're
But-
right. You're right.
But anyway, I've sat down at 7 o'clock and said, I'm going to read this book tonight. By God, I'm going to read it. And I end up late for work the next morning, and I have not slept. So I could read that entire book. And you know, the book would have not ended any different had I
Right.
split that up into 2 different nights. But I also, and I don't know if I've ever talked about that on this show, but I have terrible, terrible OCD. And I ain't talking about the kind of OCD people brag about, how they got to be neat and clean all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have that, where everything in a place and place for everything and all that. But I have, like, you got to touch the handle on the faucet so many times. And
Yeah.
I can't walk in my apartment without taking off my hat, and I can't be touching my keys until I actually put the key. I mean, it's bad. It's
Okay.
almost to the crippling point, to where that's why I don't really do anything socially.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I'm socially, I can't control it, but it's pretty rough. So sometimes those OCD moments can be, I can't not read this book. I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
If that
No, it
doesn't-
makes perfect sense to me.
And like, one of the good things about it though is prayer, because I cannot leave my house without praying. Like, I just can't do it. I've heard people, you know, I forgot to pray this. I can't leave my house. This, whatever this is, will not allow me to. So it has good factors and it has bad factors.
Well, and so does life.
Yeah, life does. doesn't it?
That sounds like recovery to me. It's just like learning to deal with what you have in a way that you can manage. And I mean, like you said, you wasn't late because you're hungover. You're late because you read a book. So it's
Yeah,
a different.
I just had to see how it ended. You
yeah,
know,
I mean, but it's a different mindset, and
Yeah, you haven't lost your values or your principles or all the things that you've worked towards. You know, you're still doing the right thing in a sense.
So, Matt, have you been rocketed into the 4th dimension?
I mean, I guess so. I don't mean from us talking. I don't know. Rocket is the word that bothers me, but you know,
I get
within a year to 18 months in that time frame of sobriety, and that all coincided with finishing steps, with trying to
Yeah.
sponsor other guys, all those things coming into play, being active. yeah, even though I was going through divorce and going through things like that, at the same time, it was probably the biggest tide turning and rolling over. So, I mean, you could call it that, I guess. Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to read a little bit more of this book right quick, okay? Because the very next paragraph, and this is in There Is a Solution, by the way. The great fact is just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do for ourselves. Okay? It sounds like a mouthful when you say that. It's almost like when I was in school and I faked getting the Holy Ghost, right? Because everybody else was getting the Holy Ghost, and I felt like, I need to get it, so I faked it, right?
Okay.
And you don't have to fake a spiritual experience. You don't have to act like you got one. Just do the steps.
Yeah.
Just do the steps to the best of your ability.
I had a guy doing a fifth step second or third time. His whole deal after reading the big book and his whole mindset was, when I do my fifth step and I pray about it and I do the things I'm supposed to do after that, and I'm not making fun. This was his mindset was, there's going to be, the sky's going to roll back. There's going to be thunder and lightning. God's going to come riding down on a chariot. You know what I mean? Like this big something out of the biblical scene. And I believe that people have those type experiences. But I also believe that sometimes things ease along and you get better, but he was bound and determined that if something dramatic doesn't happen, then it didn't count.
Okay. And I think
that's a weird,
the reason, because that is dramatic, being rocketed to the fort. That sounds like I'm in a rocket ship and I'm going through space and these big things are about to happen. And big things did happen. I think when people read that, they think like it is so, to me, it seemed like I would be blissful for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And, life still happens. And I do have, moments where I'm not just completely, just ecstatic. And I think it just knowing that, and it's not necessarily have to do with just being super happy all the time.
I talked to my sponsor about that, and I said, hey, I was telling him the guy's expecting literally some type of biblical Charlton Heston movie.
And I felt like I was looking out for something like that at that point.
And my sponsor looked at me and he said, I did a fifth step with you, didn't I? I said, yeah. He goes, what happened when you did yours? I said, I just got better. And he goes, right.
Okay.
And he goes, that's what happened to me when I did mine. Things just started to get better because it's a process to it. And by the end of it, I looked back and I went, okay, this has cleared a lot of stuff that I didn't realize in the moment was doing that necessarily. But
and
yeah,
it's also a process to identify bad behaviors and then do something about them.
Right.
Sure.
To make the necessary changes to do all that. Another thing that kind of reminded me of what you were talking about was, I was in treatment and people were coming back from their fifth steps, and everybody would come back and this was the magical thinking, kind of like I thought about as far as ending the steps. There's a spiritual awakening, coming, and rocketed to the all these magical things to me.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh my God, the weight of the world is off my shoulders. I feel amazing. And I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I did mine and I came back and everybody's like, oh, how was yours? I was like, I just talked to someone.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. So I started to think something was wrong. Maybe I wasn't doing things right, because it can have a little bit of magical talk to it.
I'm not discounting anyone's experience with it, but I don't feel like, and this poor guy, he had it in his head that the only way this is happening is if that happens. If it didn't, then it don't count. And I'm like, you just poured your guts out over. We just went through this big old deal. It happened. that's a miracle in itself for one of us to sit down and talk about issues and things
Yeah.
we've done in character. And
Well,
you know,
maybe he learned something about expectations that day.
and I mean, you know, I hope, but
True,
I you know, it just, that's what I go back to with you and Travis, though. I think people have different ways of looking at things, and that's what's so cool about where we're at is you can get there a few ways. You are free to believe what you want to believe, and you know, I just didn't want him being disappointed if something didn't happen, because I was like, look, man, you're doing great. You're sober. You're moving along. Like, these are accomplishments.
I'm glad you did that, because I felt disappointed. I felt like I was getting like, screwed out of something.
I felt relief after doing step 5, and that's what I felt. And I really felt like I had made a huge leap in the program as far as getting to that point. That was kind of a tipping point as far as, all right, we're going to start rolling with this now. And I felt a lot better. Was there Charlton Heston? No. Was there the 10 Commandments up there with the thing? No. You know.
And also in the readings at that point is saying before you were halfway. Wait, how does it go?
halfway through, yeah.
Yeah,
By the time you're halfway through,
you'll
be amazed.
You'll be amazed. Yeah. And you're kind of like waiting on that too. So I felt like I was just sitting around with a detective with a magnifying glass, like
Yeah.
looking for something
I'm
coming.
gonna go back to what they say a lot of times. You can't work the promises and expect the steps to come true.
Yeah, that's good.
Just work the freaking steps to the best of your
That's right.
ability. Don't half-ass it. Half measures got us nowhere.
That's right.
Don't half-ass the steps. Work them to the best of your ability and see what happens. You know, we'll give you your money back. How about that? If nothing happens, but you're talking to a guy that honestly thought this was just a bunch of crap.
Hey, same.
There is no way I'm going to do that and anything's going to change. I'm still going to be scared to death when I leave here every day that I'm going to drink between now and the time I get back. And somewhere in there, everything I was worried about went away. Like
Yeah.
it just, this magical, and you hear what I just said? Everything I was worried about went away. Like there was no more worrying about this stuff. Just stay sober. You worry about getting to a meeting and meeting with that sponsor, and everything that we talk about is going to happen.
The thing is, it didn't go away. It was still there. Your perception.
Our attitude towards
Absolutely.
life, towards our fellow people, toward, some people drive themselves crazy over what other people say or do.
Oh, man.
And I mean, I'll be honest with you, Matt, there is nothing in this world that you could say that would make me stop talking to you or loving you or considering you as my friend.
Yeah.
That's just nothing.
Because we give grace to others, and we've learned to give it to ourselves when we go, man, they're not where they need to be maybe at this moment.
There are people who lay in bed at night going, that said, they ain't done shit. Nobody really ever does anything. Some famous guy quoted one time that said, when everything's been said and done, there's been a lot more said than there has been done.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And that is probably the most god-awful true statement I've ever heard, because these people, and you're going to drive yourself crazy over what someone else said. And did you hear them correctly at that?
Right.
And it sounds bad, but my whole attitude is, I don't care.
I don't care.
I don't care.
Well,
And
I
it's
go back to the
you.
I don't
Yeah.
give a shit attitude.
Yeah.
Too tired.
But why care? Why lay there and be so emotionally invested? And I mean, I've seen it with people with social media. Somebody liked my picture that dirty, and I'm like, we're going to go to war over somebody looking at something on Facebook that you don't like this person or that person. We're going to have this big of a deal.
Yeah.
And it's like, who cares?
If it's that big of a deal, you don't need to be on Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, who cares?
Agreed.
I mean, like, man, I wouldn't even be on Instagram if it wasn't for this show. I'm still ain't on Facebook because I don't care. I don't care.
I'm glad you brought up Facebook because, Matt, we do
have Facebook now.
We have a Facebook. Please, guys, look up Grouch and Brainstorm on Facebook. You'll see our 3 mugs standing there together. I think it might be a black and white picture in the background, but we have 10 followers.
All right.
And I would love to do a live stream, right? But if we have 10 followers, 1/3 of them is not going to be able to make it whenever we do a live stream. So you can have us and 3 people, which is great. I would love to have that. People's people, but we need followers on our Facebook. It ain't for financial gain or any of that. Trust me, it ain't making me no money. But we do. I would love to do a live stream. I have a button on here. I push the button. I enter a couple numbers, and boom, we're on a Facebook live stream. Right. So we need people on our Facebook. If we can, we have 178 followers on Spotify. And, and I remember when we had 123 and we were like, we need some followers on Spotify. And we still do. I mean, we need as many as we can get. But, and it's all about just getting out there and helping that newcomer however we can.
Absolutely.
It is going to be a hot summer this year.
Yeah, we're up here with no air conditioning because this thing has a window unit and we can't run it with the mics. So we cut it off so I can feel water on my neck.
I can see you're glistening.
Yeah, I'm hot. Like it's hot, but it's gonna be a fun summer. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we're probably gonna have to move our recordings to in the morning, either on a Saturday or a Sunday.
If y'all see me and Mike in flip flops and our underwear, don't judge. Okay, don't judge.
I'm looking through to see if we have any different followers in any different countries, and I don't see any there. We still get 44.9 is on Apple and 45.8 is on Spotify, which is pretty good. And we do have our 178 followers, still 178. Our average listens is 41. We're up to 9,641 total listens. So I would like to rocket this thing into another dimension as well, The whole goal for a lot of it is for it to eventually to become self-supporting, and so it's not Mike supported.
This remember watching public broadcasting and they would say, whatever show, and then they would go, it's funded by the so-and-so family. Because somebody had to just pay. But this is funded by the Walston family.
This is funded by the Walston family. So I'll be just very open, transparent. We made $29 last year.
$29.
And it's still sitting in the same account. Whoever donated it to, I never touched it. But $29.
Yeah.
And Mike spent $8 million on equipment and gas. At least.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
If it makes y'all feel better, though, me and Jill ain't out a penny. The whole deal. So we love Mike.
Jill still got her little footballs that are meat that walk around the yard.
Yeah, there's about 6 of them out there.
You're talking about Chunky Bud. My little
I'm
baby.
talking about chicken
The girls. That's what you're talking about, the girls.
So anyway, look up those kits on the George Foreman grill and on the chicken. How do you explain chicken?
I will say this too, talking about folks listening and interacting and all that stuff on Instagram. There's a name, I guess, 633 Recovery. You and I were talking about the other day.
It's in Oklahoma, right?
Oklahoma, Southeast Oklahoma. They have, it looks like sort of a men's sober living house. They do a lot of stuff up there. Really good. They're making knives, handmade, like teaching them blacksmith. I don't know the exact one for what knife makers are.
Forging steel, Valerian steel.
And they're beautiful knives. They're auctioning them off. It helps their program, and they've got it where you can do it online now because I asked him, hey, can we bid on it online? They're beautiful knives. They got recovery stuff on the blades. And we may have him down on the show one day, but they're really cool. If y'all get a chance, go check those out. And it's just somebody that's in this thing like we are, and they're all trying to help folks along, and I know that'd go a long way. So
and it supports a good cause.
Absolutely, man, absolutely. And they've got videos of them guys in there, and man, they cook and all that stuff. He did send me a picture of him holding up like an 8-foot rattlesnake and said he wanted to bring some of his snakes down and show us.
Absolutely not.
All right, you heard that.
I will meet you at the state line with a big hell no.
I told him, I said, you can come anytime, leave the snakes in Oklahoma.
Yes.
So, but anyway, maybe have them on here in the future. But really cool bunch of people too. So.
We still appreciate all our listeners out there.
Absolutely.
As well. No matter how many we have or how many follow us, I would like to get the live stream down, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is we just had a meeting, and you got to come to it with us.
Yeah.
So that's
y'all
cool
are all
in
part of
itself.
our recovery.
You're all part of our recovery, that's for sure. So we don't do this for nothing. But I think we're done.
All right, let's get out of here.
Yeah, let's get out of this hot. So, from a very hot Rule 62 studios in a very beautiful Bossier City, Louisiana, we've been the Grouch and the Brainstorm.